Okay, picture this. Imagine a city that was the brain of the ancient world, a place where ships were searched not for gold, but for books. Now, in that city, imagine a woman who walked its streets with the authority of a ruler and a mind that could map the cosmos, all in an age when women were expected to be silent. Her name was Hypatia.
She was a philosopher, a seriously brilliant mathematician, and an astronomer who looked up at the stars and didn't just see lights, she saw equations. She really became the final shining beacon of a golden age of reason, right before it was completely swallowed by the shadows of fanaticism.
So how in the world does one of the greatest minds of antiquity end up the target of such blind, violent rage? And why do people point to her death as the exact moment the lights went out on the classical world? Let's get into the story of Alexandria's shining star.
Our story kicks off around 350 AD in Alexandria, Egypt. Now, you gotta understand, at the time, this wasn't just another city. It was the intellectual capital of the entire known world. And Hypatia? Well, she was about to become its brightest star.
Hypatia's childhood was, well, it was anything but normal. Her dad was Theon, a famous mathematician and the last known director of the legendary Library of Alexandria. And he didn't just raise a daughter, he had a mission. He wanted to mold her into what he called the perfect human being, someone who could surpass all the collected wisdom of their time. And you know what? She did.
She was a true polymath, a master of so many different fields. But what made her really special was how she saw the world. For Hypatia, there were no walls between subjects. Math, astronomy, philosophy, it was all part of the same big quest for truth. Her Neoplatonic philosophy taught that you could understand the divine through pure reason. I mean, think about that. It was a radical idea that put thinking on the same level as faith. For her, geometry wasn't just a class, it was the actual language of the universe. And all this brainpower wasn't just for show. It translated directly into real-world influence. Hypatia never had an official title. She never wore a crown. Her incredible power came from one place and one place only, the sheer force of her intellect.
And what an influence it was. She was the go-to advisor for Orestes, the Roman prefect who ran the city. We're talking about the most powerful leaders coming to her for advice on politics and ethics. And get this, her classroom was this little miracle in a city being torn apart by division. It was a place where pagans and Christians could sit side by side, just searching for truth together. Because for Hypatia, the pursuit of knowledge, that was the only religion that really mattered.
So you can see this huge power struggle brewing in Alexandria. It was really a battle for the city's soul. On one side, you had the Roman state, led by prefect Orestes, who relied on Hypatia's logic and reason. And on the other, you had the booming Christian church, led by the patriarch Cyril, who demanded absolute faith and obedience. These two worlds, logic and dogma, were headed right for a collision.
And this really gets us to the heart of the conflict. 4th century Alexandria had turned into a total powder keg of religious and political tension. That whole world of intellectual freedom that Hypatia represented, well, some people were starting to see it as a direct threat to the new order.
And things escalated fast. The world of classical learning she was born into began to literally crumble. First, the destruction of the Serapeum Temple, which was basically a sister library to the Great Library. Then came the appointment of the hardline patriarch Cyril. By 415, the political war between Cyril and the Hypatia-advised Orestes was at a boiling point, and that put her, a powerful pagan woman advising the state, right in the crosshairs. Now, to destroy Hypatia's influence, her enemies couldn't challenge her with logic. They couldn't out-debate her. They didn't even try. Instead, they turned to a much more powerful and dangerous weapon: fear.
The weapon was slander. Simple as that. A vicious campaign of rumors and pure misinformation was launched with one goal: turn the people of Alexandria against her. And the rumors were so specific and twisted. They claimed she wasn't a philosopher. No, she was a sorceress. Her knowledge wasn't wisdom, it was diabolical mathematics that she was using to cast spells, to bewitch the prefect and turn him against the one true faith. They took her greatest strength, her mind, and they reframed it as her greatest sin.
In March of 415 AD, the unthinkable happened. The smear campaign worked. A mob, whipped up into a frenzy by fanaticism, decided to take matters into their own hands.
What happened next was swift and horrifying. As she was traveling through the city, her carriage was ambushed.
The mob dragged her from it, pulled her into a nearby church, and there, they murdered her. It was a crime so brutal it shocked the conscience of the world and marked a terrifying turning point.
But here's the thing. While her life was put out, her legacy became immortal. Her death wasn't just a murder, it became a symbol for the end of an entire era, a light that, even today, refuses to completely fade away.
Which makes you ask a really tough question. Was this the final nail in the coffin for the intellectual tradition of classical antiquity? Was the spirit of free inquiry and reason, the very spirit of the great library of Alexandria, lost with her?
And that's why we still tell her story. She's become this powerful symbol of intellectual freedom, standing up against dogma. A martyr for science and reason. A feminist icon who used her intellect and courage in a world that wanted her to have neither. And maybe, most important of all, she's a timeless, tragic reminder that knowledge is precious, and it is incredibly fragile.
So, we're left with this question. Was Hypatia a clear-cut martyr of science, killed simply for the sake of reason? Or was she, in a way, an inevitable victim of the brutal, messy, and violent politics of a city that was literally tearing itself apart? Her story teaches us that when reason goes up against raw power, the truth itself can end up being the sacrifice. And that is a lesson worth remembering.